My name is Dr. Ryan Clements, and I am an assistant professor and chair in business law and regulation at the University of Calgary Faculty of Law. My area of scholarship and research is in financial market regulation, particularly with an emphasis on financial innovation and how innovations in financial markets, products, and services can lead to benefits for society, and in some cases, the risks that emerge when innovation is brought into finance. One particular study that I've been working on for several years now is the role that technology and innovation can have in providing greater financial inclusion in society. This type of study that I've been doing is transdisciplinary in that it looks past just regulatory frameworks and legal structures in terms of whether or not there are structural impediments to financial inclusion, but also includes studies in psychology and behavioral finance and financial literacy and a number of social sciences. It's also very community facing in terms of the fact that there are a fairly large segment of society that doesn't use banks and traditional financial institutions to the full extent that they otherwise could. We call this group of individuals underbanked. There's also a smaller segment of society that doesn't use banks at all. And so why is it a benefit to be included financially? Well, there's a number of documented benefits of financial inclusion, including economic prosperity, well-being, improved health and educational prospects, the ability to smooth financial and economic shocks, and greater employment and flexibility, and even the ability to participate in entrepreneurial ventures. So what do people do when they are excluded or when they don't utilize the full capacity of the traditional banking structure? Well, there's a number of industries that sometimes are called fringe finance industries, things like pawn shops or rent-to-own services or payday lenders or check cashing services. And the challenge with these type of firms is that they have a high cost of financial services. And so it actually facilitates and exacerbates the problem of poverty and income and wealth inequality, in that a lot of individuals who aren't using traditional banking will end up paying higher costs and fees for financial products and services than they would if they were utilizing conventional banking structures. So then we ask the question in terms of, well, why don't people use incumbent financial institutions and traditional banking structures if they're otherwise eligible for it? Either if they don't have a bank account period and they're entirely underbanked, or if they're not utilizing the full scope of the potential financial services that would otherwise be available. The answer to that question is actually very, very complex there, and this really ties into the transdisciplinary nature of this type of scholarship. There are numerous factors that assess why individuals don't utilize banks or why individuals are excluded from the financial system. There's things like low income, poor education, lack of financial literacy. There's perceptions of ineligibility which play into this, or perceptions of being judged by traditional banking institutions. There's also questions of accessibility in terms of proximity to traditional banks, or having limited access to certain products and services. There's also things like a lack of credit history or a lack of institutionalized means to save. Sometimes there's identity and no government documentation or legal documentation challenges that people have. There's confusion about the fee structures of traditional banking, and some of these fringe financial services are perceived as being more transparent by individuals who don't utilize traditional banking. So my research then, because I'm a lawyer as well, I'm looking at whether or not new forms of technology can help to include individuals who don't utilize traditional banks in a way that lowers the cost of financial products and services for them. And as in terms of legal research, I'm looking at, are there regulatory impediments or frictions that prevent these types of new firms, we call them fintech innovations, financial technology firms, from providing analogous products and services to what a traditional bank would provide, but at a cheaper cost and a more efficient and easier to use way than some of these what we call fringe financial services. And what I found with respect to this question is yes, there are, but it's also complex. There are clearly fintech innovations with financial inclusion potential in this country. Things like mobile financial services, real-time payments, fintech credit and online lending platforms, tech-enabled savings and investment mechanisms. There are potential value propositions through something we call open banking and data portability, and there's a number of technologies that can provide identity verification solutions, but there are significant implementation barriers, both legal and structural, in terms of capturing the total potential inclusionary benefit that these technologies can provide. You know, things, practical implementation barriers like technology and mobile phone access, but also things like financial literacy and individual behavioral changes that would be needed in order to utilize these cost-saving mechanisms. There are also a number of regulatory accommodations that are necessary. And every time we talk about potential regulatory accommodations for new firms entering into a heavy regulated area like banking and financial services, then we also have to look at the other side of this question, which is the question of risk and the question of potential destabilization in terms of the financial system. So this gives rise to what I call integration risks in terms of utilizing financial technology for financial inclusionary purposes. Things like cybersecurity and privacy and consumer data protection and operational risks and the potential for the things like biases to come in the process of providing financial services that could lead to further financial exclusion. So in my work, I work cross-disciplinary and very community focused in terms of identifying both the type of technologies that can provide the financial inclusionary benefit, identifying the regulatory frameworks that perhaps need to be adjusted in order to provide this type of benefit, and then also working in terms of community-focused ventures in understanding how we can provide greater financial literacy and facilitate behavioral change to allow for better habits and behaviors to help people who traditionally aren't utilizing banking and traditional financial services.